with 84 TV radio. And I will be sharing this responsibility, the responsibility of making sure that our event goes smoothly, with an honorable guest, who is Dr. Ahandi Iheme.
Thank you.
Please let us give him a big welcome. Dr. Iheme will be telling us a little bit more about himself just after I do. But personally, I told you I'm a broadcaster, but I'm not only a broadcaster, I am also of the generation that was still in the university when we had the first major ASU strike. And that was back in, I think it was 1992. And if you were a student at that time, you would realize that it was a nightmare for the next 5 to 6 years that followed. And I will share with you how I got affected. I went into the universities to study a 4-year course, but ended up spending 7 years. Throughout my years in university, I never had a single carryover. But I, instead of spending 4 years, spent 7. And that was as a result of a lot of strikes. And the bone of contention there was funding of our tertiary institutions. So it was a miracle when in the early 2000s, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund was established as an intervention agency to halt the rot in our tertiary institutions. At the time, infrastructure was the major challenge. And TETFund stepped in. At the time, it was called Education Tax Fund, later Education Trust Fund. And I had the honor of meeting even the pioneer executive secretary and the director of communications at the time. And I am amazed at what has happened and what they have achieved since then. Now, the current executive secretary, Professor Elias Bogoro, has initiated a change that will add to the success of TETFund. Why do I say add? Because TETFund has been a roaring success right from its inception. You will struggle to find any TETFund project that has not reached conclusion, which is in direct contrast to a lot of what we see in our greater Nigerian society, and I believe TETFund deserves a big round of applause for that. So Professor Bogoro said, let us take this record of achievement and initiate something new. Let us look at content. Let us look at research and development and reposition our country so that it becomes a bastion of the knowledge economy for developing countries of the world. And in doing that, one of the things that was conceptualized was the Standing Committee on Research and Development. And this is the reason why we're here. It is a first step in what would be a paradigm shift for our nation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the members of our high table, the people who will be leading us here. Not all of them are present at the moment, but even as they come along, we will recognize them. The first person I would like to introduce is the Honorable Minister of the Federal Ministry of Education, Malam Adamu, who is here ably represented by the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Honorable Emeka Nwajuba. Let's give him a big round of applause. Chukwu Emeka Nwajuba. Let us give him a big round of applause. Honorable Minister, you're very much welcome. We also have the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Education, Architect Sonny Echono. I would like to introduce to you the Chairman of the Senate Committee of Tertiary Institutions and TETFund, Senator Ahmed Buba Keita. I believe we are still expecting him. He is on his way. We also have the Chairman, House Committee on Tertiary Education and Services, Honorable Amina Suleiman Goro. Aminu Suleiman Goro. On his way, but let's give him a big round of applause. As soon as he comes in, we'll recognize him again. We would like to recognize the presence of Honorable Ikenna Eleziana. Honorable Ikenna Eleziana. Let's give him a big round of applause. We have here the Chairman of TETFund Board of Trustees, Alhaji Qasim Ibrahim Imam. I think we can do much better than that. Let's have a big round of applause for our chairman. We would also like to recognize the Executive Secretary of TETFund, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro. We have the Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission, Professor Abubakar Ahmadu Rashid, who is ably represented here by Dr. Suleiman Ramon Yusuf, who's the Deputy Executive Secretary of the NUC. Let's give him a big, warm welcome. And then we have the chairman of the TETFund R&D Standing Committee. That's the Emeritus Professor N.M. Gadzama. So we have a few guests, and as our guests continue coming in, this is a star-studded event. And as our guests come in, we will continue to recognize them. But at this point, we would like to open with our first item, if you look at your programs, which is a PowerPoint presentation on the role of research and development to our economy. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Dr. Bako to tell us more about what we're about to see. Let's give Dr. Bako a warm welcome.
Dr. Saleh Bakari.
Dr.
Saleh
Bakari.
Bakari. Dr. Saleh.
All right. Quick correction, ladies and gentlemen. The first word we'll have to introduce the first presentation is from the Director of Research and Development and Centers of Excellence of TETFund, Dr. Saliu Bakari Gire.
The Honorable Minister of Education, Malam Adamu Adamu, ably represented by the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Dr. Honorable Chikumeka Wajiba, the Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Education, sir, the Executive Secretary, Tertiary Education Trust Fund, Professor Suleiman Elias Ogoro, the Chairman of the soon-to-be inaugurated R&D TETFund Standing Committee. Permit me, sir, to stand on the well-defined existing protocol. we are going to just show a teaser of the role of R&D in knowledge economy. Definitely, I am not in a better standing to speak to these eminent personalities who are in their own rights are all experts in R&D, but mine is just to give a very, very brief presentation on what R&D can do and has been doing for development of nations. I don't know who's handling what is knowledge economy? Because we've been talking about knowledge economy. Simply put, in a layman's perspective, knowledge economy is what you know is more important than what you have. In other words, it's the knowledge that determines the value of even what you have. And this is what the world is doing. It's not about natural resources, it's about harnessing of natural resources. Knowledge economy is a system of consumption and production that is based on intellectual capital. In particular, it refers to the ability to capitalize on scientific discoveries and basic and applied research. This has come to represent a large component of all economic activity in most developed countries. We will understand this better if we go to the next slide, where we attempt to have a graphic understanding of knowledge economy. In knowledge economy, intangible capital is the new driver. In other words, what you know versus what you have. A typical example is we have cocoa and we produce cocoa, but Switzerland has chocolate. And the amount of money we spend to import chocolate is much more than the amount of money we get by exporting cocoa to Brazil. So is the knowledge that we have, or let me say that Brazil and other developed countries has, in transforming cocoa into chocolate that actually drives the economy. Same here, the issue of crude oil versus petroleum products. Many countries have crude oil and they are potentially rich and they remain potentially rich. Other countries that may not have oil import this crude oil, transform them into petroleum products and make much, much more money than the countries that have oil. And if you look at statistics, most countries that have oil may not necessarily be rich countries in the world. It's those countries who have the know-how to manipulate the crude oil that are actually rich, and that even those countries that have oil that depend on for survival. Same example is that of manual agriculture versus smart agriculture. We have, especially many countries have the land, they have all the potential to transform from agriculture to smart business or smart agri or even agribusiness, but they remain just at their potential. And it's the knowledge that distinguishes that is actually the gap. What a country that develops knowledge in agriculture produces in 1 hectare of land is, or maybe something that a country that is still struggling may be able to produce in 10, 20 hectares of land. And that's why we are unable to provide sufficient food security for our countries unless and until we're able to use knowledge to advance agriculture. And generally, non-R&D compliant countries have become dumping sites for everything. We are more or less consumers, if you like. Countries that are not compliant with R&D are at the receiving end of products. And that affects their foreign exchange, as we all know. It affects the value of their currencies. It affects generally the quality of life. So for us to move forward, every country that really wants to move out of poverty and wants to be counted as one of the developed countries and nations, we must invest in R&D, and we must transform our economy into knowledge economy. Knowledge economy has therefore become increasingly important, being seen as a source of economic growth and competitiveness in all economic factors. And we all know that innovation drives economic growth, but what fuels innovation is actually innovative research. Innovative research and its subsequent commercialization, that's R&D, is the driver that moves and nurtures the engine of economic growth. The R&D generated by higher education in particular, and in particular universities, has contributed to the rise and expansion of the world knowledge economy. As we will see later, the United States of America is the leader in this, and this largely because of the quality of the universities in the United States. And that's when you talk about innovation, innovation is a product of research in most cases, if not in all cases. And universities have the primary responsibility of carrying out cutting-edge research to drive the economy. If we go, you can see that figure. Okay. An example, we have Stanford University in the United States. The university's faculty and alumni have founded major tech companies, including Google, Hewlett-Packard, and Cisco Systems. A 2012 study by the university estimated that companies formed by Stanford entrepreneurs generate so much revenue that if they formed an independent nation, it will rank among the 10 largest economies in the world. Just one university in the United States. MIT, also in the United States, has produced 90 Nobel laureates, 59 National Medal of Science winners, 75 MacArthur Fellows, and a study conducted by the university suggested that 30,000 such companies were active in 2014, employing 4.6 million people and producing annual revenue of $1.9 trillion. That's just companies emanating from MIT alone. Harvard University, which is the oldest institution of higher education in the United States, has produced 48 Nobel laureates, 32 heads of state and governments, and the university's endowment is the largest and has 39.2 billion United States dollars. That's just, if you look at just 3 universities in the United States, aggregate their total income, that will tell you why R&D and why knowledge economy is the in thing. Further, we look at the asset valuation trends. In 1991, up to 1991, the trends in global wealth creation had to do with the tangible assets, oil, gas, etc., etc. And but today, as of today, 70% of the value trends is on intangible assets. That's the knowledge. It's about what you know that drives who you are. And that will tell us why today the United States not only dominates the economy, but it also dominates the political sphere. Because if you have the knowledge, the technology, and you dominate the world economy, definitely you also dominate the world political stage. We will see that more glaringly where okay. So mercifully, the government of His Excellency Muhammad Buhari has recognized that for us to move as a nation, we must take concrete steps to correct the neglect of research. He has said it in 2015, and I quote, that my administration will take concrete actions to correct the neglect of research, science and technology by past governments. My administration will dedicate more resources and energy to the sector because no country could make progress without serious commitment to the development of science and technology. And this has been taken very seriously by the Federal Ministry of Education, and through the TETFund, the government has increased its allocation for applied research, particularly the National Research Fund, from 3 billion naira for 10 years to 5 billion naira in 2019 and 7.5 billion naira additionally in 2020. In addition, the Federal Ministry of Education, through TETFund, has also increased the institution-based research allocation to 12.5 billion naira in just 2 years, from what it used to be 2 billion or 3 billion naira. And culminating into all this is what we are witnessing today. That is the inauguration of this all-important standing committee on R&D to drive knowledge economy for Nigeria. The Honorable Minister of State, sir, the Permanent Secretary, my Executive Secretary, sir, may I thank you for giving me the opportunity to make this presentation. Thank you very much, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gire, for giving us an overview of what is happening and what we are here to do today. My name is Andy Iheme. I work with the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University as the Director of Public Relations, and my legs are already getting wobbly because of the caliber of people I see here this morning. The ES, you will permit me if I just do a quick run through. We have here seated with us this morning the chairman of the Research, Development and Standing Committee of TETFund, in the person of Emeritus Professor N.M. Gadzama, FAC. Please, let's put our hands together. Professor Emeritus Gadzama was the former VC of University of Maiduguri, and I think he had a stint in Port Harcourt too. Gadzama is known to be a tranquilizer wherever there is trouble, and I would like you to appreciate him for that. Let's put our hands together. We also have in our midst as one of the 3 vice chairmen, in the person of Engineer Mansour Ahmed, is the president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. For those of us who have been seeing him on the airwaves, this is an opportunity to see him. He's not a celestial being, but this man has been everything there has to be in the petroleum industry. Can we please appreciate him? Thank you. There's a professor here who has He is getting close to the octogenarian group. I remember him very much when he was in Zaria. I think he made lecturing a glamorous job. And I would like to appreciate Professor Dekunle, the criminologist. He was a very young professor then at ABU. And I'm privileged to introduce a man who, by the time I got into the university in 1974, he was already a professor. And we used to call him the moving encyclopedia. Gentlemen, please encourage Professor Anya FAS. He was the former director of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. It's nice to have these people. At a point, some of us were thinking they don't belong to this planet. But it's nice to have you here, sir. We'll go further to appreciate the man who is at the helm of affairs of the National Universities Commission, the man who regulates everything that happens in our university. And it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Abubakar Adamu Rashid. Is in the house. Okay, please, he's represented. Please, let's appreciate him. Thank you for coming. I would now like my brother Bentu to do a bit of the introduction. Is Bentu around? All right, please, just a bit of house cleaning. The Deputy Executive Secretary who is representing his ES, please can you come forward and make your remarks? Thank you very much. Let's encourage him. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Education, the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Education, ES TETFund, Professor Buguru, Emeritus Professor Gazama, distinguished and eminent scientists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me quickly apologize on behalf of my boss, the Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission, Professor Abubakar Adamu Rashid, who, despite his earlier plans to be here, had to contend with an emergency situation this morning, hence his unavoidable absence. For us at the National Universities Commission, today's epoch-making event is very, very heartwarming. Because it is well known to many of our stakeholders that the National Universities Commission, in consultation with various stakeholders, has articulated a blueprint for the rapid revitalization of university education in Nigeria. And of course, this blueprint captures in great detail most of the challenges in the Nigerian university system, and also has gone ahead to articulate the roadmap towards mitigating some of these challenges. Now, a critical approach to the articulation and actualization of this blueprint, which of course has the overarching objective of repositioning Nigerian universities to enable them contribute more meaningfully to national socio-economic and technological development. And of course, it is clear that with this objective, one modality that we cannot do without is a robust national system of innovation. Therefore, for us at NUC, having chosen to adopt the triple helix approach of academia, government, and industry, we are very confident that we're on the right track. But you will agree that dreams and blueprints may not mean much without the enablement which is where Professor Elias Boguru comes in with the TETFund to give fillip to our desire to reposition the universities along the lines that we have mentioned. So it is on this basis that we are very delighted and very proud to be associated to this event and to put on record our immense gratitude to Professor Suleiman Elias Boguru for his passion for R&D, which is well known to all of us in this room. He's been very, single-minded and purposeful in driving this machine of R&D, and of course, the brain box of this achievement will be the inauguration of this standing committee today with these eminent women and men who have distinguished themselves in various areas of research and innovation. So it is on this note that we express great gratitude to TETFund under Possible Growth leadership, and then of course our partners in the private sector under the aegis of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group here ably represented. We are very confident that with the inauguration of this standing committee today, going forward, we have begun the journey that will see our universities demonstrating clear relevance in national development. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. I think those remarks deserve another big round of applause. We still have more people to recognize as the occasion continues. Joining us on the high table, we have Hajia Fatima Mohammed Buhari. Let us give her a big welcome. We would also like to recognize the presence of the Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Colleges of Education, Professor Bappa Aliu Muhammadu, who is represented ably here by Alhaji Garba Mohammed Koko, who is the Director of Planning, Research and Statistics. Let's give him a big round of applause. We still have guests arriving. We'll continue to recognize them as the event goes further. But we want to move on to the next item that we have on our agenda, which are remarks by the Chairman, House Committee on Tertiary Education and Services, Honorable Aminu Suleiman Goro. And Honorable Goro is represented today by a member of that committee, Honorable Ikenna Eleziano. So let's welcome him to give his remarks.
Thank you very much. My chairman is unavailably absent today, and I'm here to represent him. The Honorable Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, ably represented here today by the Minister of State, Honorable Emeka Nwajuba, the Chairman and members of the Board of Trustees of TETFund, the Head of Tertiary Institution and other invited guests, members of the press, and all protocol duly observed. On behalf of the members of the House Committee on Tertiary Education and TETFund and the entire House of Representatives, it is a great honor and privilege to be part of this very important and historic occasion of the inauguration of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund Standing Committee on Research and Development, R&D. I am particularly happy because the setting up of this committee to handle research and development at this period is timely and apt, as it will not only lead to the emergence of new way of doing government business through the transfer of knowledge across national and international corporate networks, but will go a long way in opening window of opportunities of identifying and preferring lasting solutions to the myriad of protracted challenges enabling positive changes in the different sectors of our economy, most especially the education sector, which is the first step of learning in all human endeavor. It is on record that research is the gateway to any innovation or discovery leading to meaningful growth and development. However, it is sad that while countries like United States, China, Japan, Korea, and most others have been investing half of their fortunes in research and development, we seem to give less attention in that direction, which may explain the present state of our education sector and the economy as a whole. However, this new development has rekindled the hope and aspiration of our vision and mission as a country to join the rest of the world in research activities. I have therefore no doubt in my mind that what we are gathered to witness today is a step in the right direction. I am not surprised when I receive an invitation to participate at this occasion, knowing fully the capacity, personality, commitment, and the selflessness, skillfulness, and experience of Professor Suleiman Bogoro, an academician, a leader of the think tank for translating research into innovation strategies, evidence for policy and national development created by the University of Ibadan Research Foundation, a pioneer that championed the creation of the Department of Research and Development in TETFund in his first tenure. In his second reassignment, the Executive Secretary of TETFund is moving further to expand the scope, research and development to a higher level for better results. Let me congratulate and commend the Board of Trustees, the Executive Secretary, the management of TETFund for this uncommon feat, being executed today under the able and exemplary leadership of the Honorable Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, for this passion, patriotism, and commitment to education, which could not have been possible without the visionary supervision. As we all know, research and development, being the first stage of development of potential new service or the production process, are innovative activities undertaken by corporations or governments in developing new ideas, services, and products, or improving existing ones. Is not only very costly, but generally carry greater risk and uncertainty. It is, however, heartwarming that with the current management, the burden will now be borne by TETFund. Hence, I urge and encourage all beneficiaries, especially tertiary institutions, to take good advantage of this proposition to enable scholars and research generate results that will stimulate and further improve the knowledge, ultimately turned into vision and marketable innovations to surmount our problems for a betterment of this country. On this note, I want to use this opportunity to urge TETFund, the Ministry of Education, and indeed all relevant agencies to cooperate with the National Assembly in the course of its oversight functions, as it is through these collaborations and interactions that any of the government objectives and policies can be achieved. Finally, as we commence the occasion of the inauguration of this committee, I wish you a successful and rewarding outcome. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, you permit me to recognize some very key stakeholders in the entire enterprise of today. We have members of the BOT, Board of Trustees of TETFund, And I would like to recognize the member representing the Southeast in the person of Chief Ufaro Kirian. Thank you, sir. We also like to recognize the member representing the Federal Ministry of Finance in the person of Mrs. Rosalind Kolade. We also have in our midst the Chief Executive Officer and the Executive Vice President of the Nigerian Telecommunications Commission in the person of Professor Umar Garba Dambata. He is represented by Dr. Henry Nkemadu, Director, Research and Development. We have the CEO of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group here present in the person of Mr. Laoye Jayegba. Please, Jayegba, please forgive me. I think it's worth mentioning that even though Mr. President is not able to join us here, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we have a representation of the first family here present in the person of Hajia Buhari. To my mind, I think this is a very tacit endorsement of what TETFund is doing today, and we need to appreciate her. Thank you very much for coming, ma'am. We also have in our midst Reverend Yakubu Pam, who is the Nigerian Christian Pilgrims Executive Secretary. You're welcome, sir. We were to have a speech, a presentation from the Senate Committee on Tertiary Education and TETFund, but I think he's still on his way. So we will move on to the next, and I would like to invite my brother Stanley Bentu to take the stand.
Thank you very much. We've reached a very critical aspect of our event today. But before we move on to that, very quickly, I would just like to recognize, and as we recognize you, if you could just stand up and give us a wave, from the Director General of the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development, Dr. Obi Peter Adigwe. Thank you very much, Doctor. We also have the Executive Vice Chairman of the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, Professor M.S. Haruna. Let's give him a big welcome. Now, research and development is the focus of TETFund in the paradigm shift. But right now, just in case some of us may be feeling a little bit stretched, we have gone through lockdown, which has kept us static for a long time. So can we just quickly wake ourselves up? Let's do a quick exercise. If everybody can look at your neighbor to the left and to the right and greet them in your native tongue. Let's take a quick second to do that. Thank you very much. Will somebody volunteer for us one of the Nigerian languages that we can greet all of us, each other by? Who can give us one language? Yoruba, Hausa, Ibibio, Mogabul, which happens to be my language. If nobody gives me one, I will impose my own. All right. So in my language, when you want to greet somebody, you say teranga. And the answer is terangse. So I will say it, and then you respond. I will say teranga, you say terangse. Teranga! Terangse. All right, thank you very much. I would like to, it's my distinct honor to introduce for his remarks, for his address, the man who is called the Apostle of Research and Development, who is initiating a paradigm shift so that Nigeria can focus on the knowledge economy that will position this nation in a better place to compete in the global economy and provide jobs for young Nigerians. Nigeria is struggling with jobs. So let us give a massive round of applause to the Executive Secretary of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, none other than Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro. Let's continue clapping for him until he reaches here.
The Honorable Minister of Education, Malang Adamu, who is absent because of a challenge of health over the last 24 hours. Otherwise, he will not have loved to miss for any reason, any other reason, this occasion. He just sent a message to me with deep apology. But that the Minister of State for Education is representing him underlines the importance he's attaching to this occasion. And so we have already, of course, introduced the Minister of State, who has been in the education sector operating at various levels, including his being the last Board of Trustees Chairman of TETFund Board of Trustees as well. After which he went to the National Assembly, the Member House of Reps, and Mr. President decided to invite him to his cabinet. Barrister Nwachuku Imeka, I just want to get it right. Sometimes I like to call the abbreviated Nwajuba. Chukwuemeka, I think that's the more complete version. Chukwuemeka Nwajuba. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been appreciating the presence of the Minister of State for Education. Of course, we also have on the high table the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education, a man that is synonymous with all that has been happening in the sector. For all these years, he's been Permanent Secretary, making his mark in a very special way. Architect Sonny Echono, who I don't think by accident with your permission, I am told that the protocols don't mind my removing the mask so that you know the masquerade. Architect Sonny Echono is an accomplished architect, but beyond that, he was early in the year elected and inaugurated President, Nigeria Institute of Architects of Nigeria. The chairman of the TETFund R&D Standing Committee and a former Vice Chancellor of the Universities of Port Harcourt and Maiduguri, a renowned scientist and biotechnologist, Professor N.M. Gadzama. The National Assembly is represented here, and I had apologies from the chairman of the two committees, both Senate and House of Reps, that they are unable to physically be with us. But we just received the very informed address of the Chairman House Committee on Tertiary Education and Services, Right Honorable Aminu Suleiman. I want to appreciate the representation of the Chairman of the House Committee on Tertiary and Services. You're most welcome, Honorable Sir. Thank you very much. We have a man I call my friend and Siamese twin brother in the context of the Triple Helix drive we'll be making and the drive for institutionalization of R&D in Nigeria, beyond just the tertiary institutions. That is the Executive Secretary of National Universities Commission, who had to go to hospital last night. But he made sure he sent somebody that below him personifies R&D at the National Universities Commission, Dr. Ramon, who just spoke about representing him earlier. Like the Master of Ceremony said moments ago, we are privileged to have in our midst a clear endorsement from the first family of this gathering. I can tell you a few days ago when I decided to inform her, the daughter of Mr. President, Fatima Buhari, that we have this event and it means so much, not just for TETFund or the education ministry or sector, but for the entire of our country in the context of the institutionalization of R&D to drive knowledge economy in the 21st century. She said, Prof, I would like to be there. You better imagine how much I appreciate the daughter of Mr. President. God bless you and thank you so much for this tacit endorsement of what we are doing. And I'm sure, I promise, with this caliber of people seated here, so faithfully and patriotically, we will make sure we don't disappoint Mr. President and yourself. Many have been introduced before now. I'll tell you one thing. We can only make sample introduction. This hall today, the composition of the personalities in this hall is history itself. It is history itself. By the time we read out, we give you a rendition of the personalities gathered here, it is the very topmost, the very best in intellectualism, in the academia, in research as cutting-edge best for our country, both within and in diaspora, seated here. Beyond that, we also have galaxy of representatives of the private sector, including some of the agencies that we sampled and requested them to join this committee, because in the Triple Helix model, it is incomplete if the academia are operating alone. It has already been said that universities are natural leaders and historically so of research. But that because they are leaders, it means they have partners. First in the line of partners for research is the industry. And that is why the industry is heavily represented here. Believe me, if I were to attempt just a casual reflection, we have the Dangote represented here, Innocent Motors, Seplat, the oil majors. We can go on and on. Research institutes in various disciplines across the sectors in this country, they are represented in most cases by the heads of those organizations. Some few have been named, and you better imagine what it means. The Nasenis of this world, of course, NIPRID, they were earlier recognized. We can go on and on. National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, as it were, NIPS, and NISA, virtually the key agencies that we felt we needed to have them in this committee from Ministry of Science and Tech, so that it reflects the proper position of the partnership that we have been forging between the academia and industry. By the way, let me apologize that although the chairman of the Board of Trustees of TETFund, Alhaji Kashim Ibrahim Imam, is not physically present because he's been indisposed recently, but he has sent his address and it is to be read by a member, one of the members of the Board of Trustees. And I think Dr. Clever, board member representing South-South. I think I saw you coming earlier, Dr. Clever. Oh, right here in front. Thank you for coming to represent the chairman. And I know you've been given his address and you will do so. Distinguished members of the committee, I say one thing for us in the academia. We say we have teachers, we have mentors, we have parents who molded us, we have grandparents, and believe me, in this hall there are great grand academic parents seated here, some of which we could never go near them when we were in the university system. You will get to mention a few of them. The chairman operates with the leadership of the committee anchored by 3 vice chairmen. And I know 1 or 2 have been mentioned. Let me say this in recognition of the role of the industry. The president of the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria, Engineer Mansour Ahmed, is right with us. Engineer Mansour Ahmed, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. He is one of the 3 vice chairmen of this committee to tell you the role of the private sector, the industry in particular. We also have the representative of the academia, the very respected scientist, a man with so many laurels I cannot attempt to call, Professor Anya Oko Anya. In his mid-80s, he's with us here physically. Thank you so much, sir. The man that was introduced that defined fast in Ebi Uzaria those days, and is in government, a member of the board of PACAC, Presidential Advisory Committee on Anti-Corruption, the one and only Professor of Criminology, Professor Odekunle, Femi Odekunle. Let me proceed with the address for the purpose of ensuring we do not go beyond the time allocated. Today we are standing on the threshold of history as we are all gathered to witness what I consider the first step in our journey and quest to join the Committee of Knowledge Economies of the world. It is therefore with a heart full of joy and a sense of fulfillment that I welcome the Honorable Minister of Education and all the distinguished and illustrious sons and daughters of Nigeria that have honored our invitation to grace this occasion. You are welcome. The primary purpose of our gathering here today is to officially inaugurate the Research and Development Standing Committee approved by TETFund Board of Trustees to redefine our focus and drive a paradigm shift in our R&D enterprise. For far too long, there has been a palpable and worrisome disconnect between the academia and industry, such that research in our tertiary institution had become merely a tool to climb the academic ladder. For industry, it was more convenient to shop for innovations and the results of research findings in other climes outside the shores of Africa. This unpatriotic and unproductive orientation offends one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which identifies traditional and indigenous people at the center of development. It must be acknowledged that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has taken many significant initiatives in providing a framework for the development of science and technology by mainstreaming it into our national development strategies. That is the way to go, because the level of investment by government in the innovative research and development as well as education determines the global competitiveness of their economies. Let me therefore express my deep appreciation to the President of the Federal Republic because of his leadership foresightness, as exemplified in the new development plan of his administration. On September 10, 2020, at the inauguration of the National Steering Committee to oversee the development of the Nigeria Agenda 2050 and medium-term National Development Plan, which succeeds Vision 2020 and the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan 2017 to 2020, Mr. President stated that the main objective of the new plan of the federal government led by him are to lift 100 million Nigerians from poverty to the next 10 years, in the next 10 years, following World Bank's projection that Nigeria will become the third most populous country in the world by 2050, with over 400 million people. According to him, the Chinese development plans, which he said had brought no fewer than 700 million people out of poverty in the last 40 years, is a good example for us to copy. He added that China's development agenda only suffered a setback in the first quarter of this year as a result of COVID-19 outbreak. He added, COVID-19 pandemic, which has created economic crisis for both Nigeria and the entire world, also has its inherent opportunities, which he said presented the country with a platform to think and chart the path of progress. With 26 working groups and a national steering committee, the core driver of the new agenda going forward is quality education that will facilitate the achievement of the set deliverables within the time frame. At the core of global evolution of educational advancement, especially content component of educational packages, is R&D. No nation in the world has attained greatness without sound and qualitative education, with R&D playing the central developmental pivotal for sustainable development. Impact of COVID-19 pandemic on world economy manifested in Nigeria with devastating effects of slowing economic activities. Severity of COVID-19 impact on Nigerian economy recorded overall growth contraction in GDP growth rate of -6 to 10% by the second quarter of this year. During this period, only the agriculture sector recorded positive growth rate at 1.58% in real terms, while the industries and services posted massive contraction of -12.05% and -6.78% growth rate respectively. Similarly, I wish to use this opportunity to thank the Honorable Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, for giving me a blanket check, literally, after he recommended my historic reinstatement by the President January last year as ES of TETFund. He told me to do anything that I am convinced is right and good for Nigeria, provided it does not breach our laws. With new impetus, I proceeded to work in harmonious closeness with the TETFund Board of Trustees, and to the credit of the BOT, they have given me all the support I have needed and I requested them to bring us to this event. Permit me do something very unique. May I request members of the Board of Trustees of TETFund that are present to rise for recognition. If I don't thank these people, I am an ingrate. Believe me, there is hardly anything that I recall since I came that I proposed to them to support me and my management that they turned down. Thank you so much. God bless you. You did this for our nation. Thank you. Take your seat. For too long, there has been a palpable and worrisome disconnect between the academia and industry. Such that research and tertiary institutions were merely a means to climbing to academic ladder, and mostly for promotions, sadly, rather than problem solving for the good of our nation. For the industry, Well, like I've always said, indeed, it has been said that the academic community in Nigeria has erroneously been clapping with one hand. You could not hear the audibility of a clapping that is with one hand. For the industry, it was more convenient to shop for innovation and the results of research findings in climb outside the shores of Nigeria, since the academia had developed thick walls and created artificial valleys that prevent the industry to leverage research outputs in our tertiary institution, coupled with the mutual distrust between the academia and industry. Very sadly, as it has been, but God willing, after today, would have all changed. That's why we have Engineer Mansour leading the industrial district at the leadership of this important committee. These factors have negated the principles of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, which identifies traditional and indigenous people at the center of development. It must be acknowledged, however, that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has taken many significant initiatives in providing a framework for the development of science and tech by mainstreaming it into our national development strategies. This can be viewed with the lens of 50% increment in the National Art and Research Fund, of TETFund, in the year 2020 approved budget. Specifically, the Board of Trustees of TETFund, having realized the position of content development, especially the place of research and development in global ranking of tertiary institutions, recommended the increment of NRF, National Research Fund. Incidentally, the two key committees, standing committees of TETFund before now, their chairman and vice chairman are all here. NRF has been chaired and continues to be chaired by Professor Bamiro. Let me recognize Professor Bamiro. Where is Professor? Thank you. A former Vice Chancellor of University of Ibadan and a profound engineer and of course professor for that. And his deputy, Vice Chairman as we call him, former Vice Chancellor, immediate past Vice Chancellor and a renowned scientist of the Usman Danfodio University, Professor Zuru. Thank you, sir. Similarly, we have the Technical Advisory Group, TAG, chaired by another renowned scientist and recently elected President of the International Food Science and Technology Institute of the world, of course, Professor Ogugua Awo of the University of Ibadan. And his Vice Chairman, I simply call him my friend, Professor Umar Pate, Director of Academic Director, Bayero University, Kano, and a Professor of Communication. I want to say Mass Comm specifically. The Board of Trustees, having realized the position of content development, especially the place of R&D, increased NRF fund from initially original 3 billion seed fund for nearly 8 years to 5 billion naira in 2019. And this year, I was happy when my Director of R&D and Centers of Excellence mentioned it, that Mr. President, after the Board of Trustees recommended to him through the Honorable Minister of Education, approved unprecedented 7.5 billion for NRF research grant for TETFund. NRF at the moment is the foremost and largest funding window of R&D in Nigeria today. Thanks to Mr. President for his vision. And the least we can do is to reciprocate this gesture by engaging in the R&D expedition that will result in goods and services that respond to our national aspiration and mitigate our national challenges, including the unfortunate insecurity situation in the country. Appropriately, therefore, the main aim of gathering some of Nigerian best brains at home and in diaspora to drive our science, technology, and innovation cannot be faulted. We at TETFund believe that nothing should be spared in pursuing a deliberate investment in R&D as it remains the most potent strategy to pilot the affairs of this country towards sustainable development and global competitiveness of our country. Our shared vision in delivering on this national assignment is the mainstreaming of R&D as a catalyst of inclusive growth and sustainable development of Nigeria's knowledge economy. Together at RDSC, that's the Research Development Standing Committee, we are on the mission of institutionalization of R&D as the driver of Nigeria's 21st century development agenda within the context of the triple helix model, and more importantly, the quadruple helix model, where the society or nation becomes the fourth pillar of development agenda. The main goal of this committee about to be inaugurated is therefore to fast-track Nigeria's global competitiveness in product development and service delivery by leveraging innovation systems led by R&D. For too long, I have always said, in the academia, we are more concerned with publication to take us to the next rank. Very few patents came out of our publications, and many of the patents ended up not being taken up by industry. And that is why we have this platform that will sit and review the issues and challenges and proceed to make recommendations that will be a new beginning for our country. The key strategic focus of the exercise that this great committee is to undertake include institutionalization of R&D in Nigeria, content development in our tertiary institutions for improved global ranking, stimulating the development of R&D units and departments in private and public enterprises in Nigeria, establishment of National R&D Foundation for sustainable funding and management, mainstreaming R&D solutions for economic diversification, front-loading R&D for policy program and project development by governments at all levels. We can improve on the ranking of our universities, by the way, in Nigeria through deepening research, building our manpower capacity and enhancing our research infrastructure base. It looked like an utopian target from the beginning, but I'm happy to take note that TETFund has, through these deliberate interventions in our tertiary institutions over the years, achieved some significant milestones in this journey. We may not be there yet, but we are not where we used to be, for sure. Nigeria has 6 universities in the overall Times Higher Education World University Rankings. The highest ranking university in Nigeria at the latest ranking released barely 2 weeks ago is the University of Ibadan, which is ranked at in the first 500 by Times Higher Education World University Rankings. Take the top institutions in the world and look at the performance across of their core objectives, which we know. The top universities in Nigeria as of 2020 include the University of Ibadan in the top 500, Lagos State University between 501 to 600, University of Lagos between 601 to 800, Covenant University 801 to 1,000, and University of Nigeria in Nsukka 1,001 plus. The new global ranking by Webimotric based on digital visibility reported as follows. The ranking are as follows. Number 1, University of Ibadan. Number 2, University of Nigeria. 3, Covenant University, Ota. 4, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, of course. 5, University of Lagos. 6, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. 7, University of Ilorin. 8, Federal University of Technology, Akure. 9, Adekunle Ajashin University, I think that is Akoko. Am I right? Thank you. And number 10, University of Port Harcourt. The ranking of universities in Africa based on research institutional rankings, well, we have them there, and I know that we have always been competing with mainly universities from South Africa and Egypt. And we thank God. Remember that about 6 years ago, there was no Nigerian university ranked among the top 10 in Africa, not even in the world. But 2-3 years after that, we had up to about 4 universities ranked. And at the moment, Nigerian universities are increasingly outpacing and outstepping universities from the other African countries. And it's been significantly attributed to the contributions of addressing the key issues of capacity, particularly strengthening faculty through TETFund interventions. Clearly, the above analysis justifies the need for today's inauguration. And the need, by the way, the full text of this lecture is being made available. Where I jump a few things is just to make sure that I do not overstretch my time. I'm sorry. Nigeria is here to be well positioned globally despite our potential in human and material resources. This is the challenge I have humbly invited all of us here today to confront headlong with renewed dedication, commitment, and support. The thematic areas of groupings were carefully selected in line with the federal government of Nigeria intervention through Economic Sustainability Plan and New Development Plan of Mr. President post-ERGP and Vision 2020, which expires December 2020. The ultimate goal is to crystallize this effort in the floating of a national R&D foundation. It is our conviction that appreciable R&D funding will catalyze the competitiveness of Nigeria's economy and raise Nigeria towards knowledge economy. Nations that recognize and apply the triple and quadruple helix model that espouses the synergy among government, development partners, academia, research institutions, industry, business, have rewritten their national narratives from the backwaters of underdevelopment to a knowledge-driven economy. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the world has gone beyond just decorating academics with exalted titles in our tertiary institution and research outfits. There has to be a veritable paradigm shift in our quest for a more competitive technology and economy through a decisive departure from the old order. Governments, academia, industry must interface in a sustainable manner and produce goods and services for local consumption and export. The establishment of National R&D Foundation has become an inescapable option as the largest basket for the sustainable funding of research and human capital development. The NRDF, National R&D Foundation, that we hope would be the key outcome from this great committee work ahead of us, is not a novelty. We won't waste our time rediscovering the wheel when R&D models have been transformed or have transformed nations for us to adopt and domesticate to suit our purpose. For example, in the UK, the Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, in line with what we are trying to do, said, and I quote, "Our commitment to increasing UK investment in R&D to 2.5% of GDP by 2027 and to increase public funding for R&D to 22 billion pounds. I'm saying this because there is something that I would say for us to appreciate that we are really lagging behind.
Let's allow you some time to catch your breath while I introduce the Executive Director, Forum for Agriculture in Africa, FARA, the arm of African Union, Ghana, Dr. Yemi Akimbamijo. There he is. You're welcome, sir. We also have from that same organization, Dr. Abdul Razak Ibrahim. Please stand up for recognition. Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Haven't done that, sir. You can take the podium, sir. Let's put our hands together as the BOT rep comes to take.
an apology from the chairman of BOT for asking his representative that lost his voice yesterday. He would have made a better alternative. Please, I'm pleading on behalf of him. Please find a space in your congested heart to accommodate my lost voice. The President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammad Buhari, here present in spirit, his wife, Alhaji Aisha Buhari, here present, yes, it's an exercise given to your throat. The Minister of Education, ably represented by immediate boss, immediate past chairman of BOT, now the Minister of State, Minister of Education. He refused to take the title chief, but pardon me, Chief Chukwuemeka Majoba represented the minister here. The Executive Secretary of BOT, Professor Obugoro, the board members here present, please allow me to stand by adding time to value by standing on the existing protocols. Remarks by Alhaji Kashim Ibrahim Imam, Chairman Board of Trustees, TETFund at the inauguration of the TETFund Research and Development Standing Committee held at Transcorp Hilton Hotel, Abuja on 24th September 2020. It is my pleasure to welcome the Honorable Minister of Education, His Excellency Malam Adamu, our distinguished guests and members of the TETFund Research and Development Standing Committee to this inauguration ceremony. The Board of Trustees TETFund, having recognized the strong and long-standing commitment that this government has to the development of prosperous and knowledge-based economy, at its last meeting approved the establishment of TETFund Research and Development Standing Committee. The establishment of this committee will no doubt enhance our research capacities and the gratitude of research as well as linkage with government, industry, and other outstanding stakeholders and greater alignment with national goals and attaining the Sustainable Development Goals. The vision of Board of Trustees is for research of higher quality, impactful, and that can contribute positively to national development. We must, and our tertiary institutions must elevate research to a position of high strategic importance. I'm glad that TETFund has taken the leadership role in the pursuit and development of high-skilled research that will make a significant contribution to the nation's sustainable economy. I take this opportunity to thank Mr. President, His Excellency Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, for graciously approving the upgrade in research funding to the TETFund from the sum of 5 billion naira to 7.5 billion naira this year, 2020. It is my singular privilege, therefore, and honor to invite the Honorable Minister of Education, ably represented by the Minister of State Education, His Excellency Malam Adamu, to inaugurate the TETFund Research and Development Standing Committee. Thank you and God bless.
Invited me already. We have some of our guests here. Are you in this group? He has invited me so you can leave. Okay, sorry, sir. Give me.
Research has shown that if you spray the microphone, it may not hold COVID viruses for long, and therefore you can then remove your mask. Permanent Secretary, the Ministry of Education, Architect Sonny Echono. The Executive Secretary of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, Professor Elias Bogoro, my brother, friend and colleague, Honorable Ikenna, representing the chairman of the House Committee on Basic Education, Honorable Aminu Gora. Distinguished members of our academy, the academia that has brought up not so well-educated people like me, professors of different standing, distinguished members of the board of the trustees of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, my SY colleagues, our military personnel, different generals and Air Force commanders, you all are welcome and good morning. I am a believer in the gospel as preached by our President and Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, that research and our continued investment in it will herald a rebirth of a Nigeria that works for all of us. The change we ran on, with which Nigerians voted us into power, is predicated on our being able to transform our national aspirations and make them national achievements. It is in recognition of this direction that the Executive Secretary at TETFund presented his vision for a research-driven nation and how to finance that ambition to our Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees, acting on that recommendation, wrote to the President through the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, for approval in the 2020 budget to expand the pause for research and development. Mr. President, having approved that pause, now charges the Tertiary Education Trust Fund to put this pause to good use It is on the strength of that that all of you have been invited. To a large extent, Nigeria's future depends on you. You've been summoned as eggheads, many of which are white-haired from where I'm standing. You've been summoned to a national service that is not available to the rest of the 200 million people who are not as educated. You've been summoned to a national calling of immense depth that requires almost the all of you. A whelming from your being, a charge at the unseen, and to cut a path for a nation at sea. I look at you all with great trepidation, because if you do not succeed, Nigeria's future is beclouded. I call to mind great researches that have been conducted in our nation. The one that I enjoy most is the research that led to the grinding of beans into my mind. My mother and mothers before her conducted extensive research to know that beans ground and made into porridge, heated up, can feed a young boy and he'll be smiling at you like this. They also discovered that if you do not heat it in water, but put the same paste in oil, it can turn to kose. Great researchers they were. But the challenges of our new sociology compels us to expand the realms of our economic participation, and therefore challenges our innovative spirit and where we must charge at. I am not often given to calling up people's names at public events, but I've been forced over the years to admire the Chief of Air Staff, General Sadiq, for pushing the Nigerian Air Force, compelling them almost to use the product of research in our country. He has vehemently refused for me to launch the book I commissioned to be done in his name since 2016, when I discovered that helicopter brakes are now being manufactured in Nigeria. That Nigeria Air Force indeed has taken out a diaphragm from a Russian Pulov helicopter and dissected it in Nigeria and produced theirs. And I was actually looking forward to being able to market it for him in Uganda. However, I was called to the federal executive. So please, it is way possible to do the impossible in Nigeria. I've seen it happen, and I know that you all are capable of doing it. The invitation that the TETFund has extended to you requires this sort of commitment. Many of you are people that are vast. Professor Anya has been doing this for a long time. Professor Nimi Briggs at the University of Port Harcourt, people have been working. I'm not saying you haven't. But at this point where we are still wearing underwears sewn in Taiwan. Nobody is wearing a made in Nigerian socks except Prof, who is not wearing at all. It is possible that we may stay as big as we are and be good for nothing. But it is also possible that we'll be big and challenge ourselves to do more. This is the invitation that Professor Bogoro has laid out in the excellently worded document he has presented us this morning. And it is at that I invite you to please join us as a government to share in the vision that President Muhammadu Buhari sold to the Nigerian public. And it is on that invitation that I ask that you please work for Nigeria in that spirit. I thank you all for coming. I thank you all for accepting. And I thank you all for applying yourselves. Your products will then tell us how far we've gone. I am now directed that based on further research, all members of this committee may please stand up to be inaugurated. Mr. Chairman of the committee, Professor Gazam, please stand down. On behalf of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, the Ministry of Education, and the Board of Trustees of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, I hereby inaugurate the Standing Committee of National Board for Research and Development. Yes, sir.
Congratulations to the committee. We would now invite the chairman of the committee to make his acceptance speech, Emeritus Professor N.M. Gadzama.
Honorable Minister of Education, the trustees of TETFund, the board of TETFund, the great management of TETFund, please let me stand on the existing protocol to ease the treasury of sitting down. I stand here and was introduced. Well, somebody said that they always send me to troubled places. But I'm happy to stand here. It is a troubled place because we are in trouble. But I'm standing here in peace because TETFund is peace. It is indeed a great pleasure to be able, on behalf of my huge team, to thank and appreciate the respected Honorable Minister of Education, Mahala Adamu, very ably represented here today. We thank him for accepting to inaugurate this important committee. Sir, your action today will be reverberated in history of Nigeria, in the annals of future development of this country. We believe that countries that invest heavily in their human resources can advance their economy and enhance the standard of living of their citizens. This happens when such countries bring to bear the imaginative thinking, skills, and innovative ability of their citizens. Nigeria cannot be an exception, especially when I stand up here and see the fantastic great brains before me. We appreciate Honorable Minister for accepting a patriotic duty to inaugurate this committee, a committee that is over 160 members with formidable assignment to offer recommendations for fast-tracking development in all aspects of human endeavor in our country through increasing the knowledge, the innovative and productivity of our people geared towards positive progress in our nation. That is why the constituent membership of this committee is highly weighted towards notable academics, professors, important university people, important government agencies, ministries, including labor union. There are many labor unions in this team. I hope we can work. Indeed, the preliminary work of the TETFund under the able leadership of Executive Secretary Professor Bogoro with his able team have done a great job. And through them, we are already beginning to work. Their preparation has been most wonderful. A lot of thought had gone into the constituting the committee to include great Nigerians locally and in diaspora, many of them from outside this country are part of the team. And we shall be guided by great practices, international practices. Scanning the membership of this great committee turns the head around indigenous. You have great renowned professors in all aspects of agriculture, specialists tested in engineering and technology, along with great researchers in pharmaceuticals and mining enterprises, as well as those specializing in digital economy and basic sciences, which is basic indeed. In addition, we have great entrepreneurs, great indeed, some of the greatest, and power providers, material science experts, and others include social engineers, and specialists in defense and military science. I see some very wonderfully handsome, well-dressed military among us. In fact, to me, this is a wonderful opportunity to appreciate this government in bringing everybody together. On behalf of these nationalist men and women, I have the special honor to echo their resolve and change the trajectory of our nation by agreeing to serve according to the terms and references ably outlined by the dynamic and visionary Executive Secretary of TETFund in his earlier speech. We promise to carry our assignment with diligence
and seriousness it deserves. Hopefully, all the efforts will culminate in the establishment of R&D culture, research and development culture. That is very important. And the establishment, finally, of research and development foundation to drive the industrialization of our great country, Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Let's have another big round of applause for Professor Gadzama and the Standing Committee on Research and Development, who will be taking the next step right after this committee to establish the culture of research and development. I would just like to quickly recognize some members of the committee, which we hadn't done a little bit earlier. We have Professor Atahiru Jega, who's a former INEC chairman. He is a member of the R&D committee. Let's give him a big welcome.